Summer finally seems to have arrived here in the UK.
Too long enough.
Hopefully wherever you are in the world, you've had a chance to sprawl out on a picnic blanket in a park, or lounge on a sandy beach, or relive your childhood days and leap through a sprinkler.
Hell yes.
I myself have been ringing in my favorite season by packing up books into the beautiful book sleeve my sister Madigan made for me, and strolling to various cafes with outdoor seating, plopping myself down and reading to my heart's content. Are you too looking to read your way into a summer mood? Struggling to find a hot summer day in book form? Is your TBR full of autumn and winter books that you understandably got after watching my other seasonal recommendations videos? I've got you covered. My name is Johanna, and today I have a list of 11 books that I think are perfect to read during the summertime. We have page-turning thrillers, we have slow-burning sagas, we have scrumptious sci-fi, and best of all, we have some of my favorite books of all time. I've broken up the list into 3 distinct sections. Part 1, I'm calling Hot Girl Thriller. And this section has absolutely nothing to do with hot girls and is merely a vague attempt at rhyming.
Your Mac friend, Brent Rambo.
I think we can all agree that summer is a time for books that keep you on the edge of your seat. These are thrillers and mysteries that will leave you wanting more. You're lying on the beach, turning page after page, and before you know it, you've finished the book and you're burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
Part 2 is what I'll call Sense and Sensibility and SPF. These are literary essentials. You've probably heard of them, maybe they've been on your TBR for a while. You gotta read them at some point in your life, and maybe this summer will be the time to do it. Part 3 is what we'll call easy breezy books. There are a couple YA books in this section which you will not normally find me recommending on my channel. But summer is not about working hard. It's about pure good vibes, easy wins, and chill pills.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a book to keep you company on a hot summer day, stay tuned. Part 1, Hot Girl Thriller. The first book that I recommend diving into this summer is by my absolute favorite thriller writer, and that is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I love this book so much. It's so well written. It's creepy, it's exciting, it's twisty and turny, it's full of compelling characters, and it is, in my view, a perfect summer read. Sharp Objects follows Camille Preaker, I think that's how you pronounce it, a reporter who has been assigned the troubling task of returning home to cover a murder and a disappearance that have happened there. She has a tense relationship with her neurotic mother, and even less to do with her teenage half-sister, who is a textbook popular girl with an eerie grip on the town. Admittedly, I'm not 100% sure that this is set during the summer, but it has a very summery feeling when I think back on it. And even if it isn't, this page-turner totally fits the bill for hot girl thriller. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'm convinced that nobody does suspense like Gillian Flynn. So many thrillers are just plot, plot, plot. But not only does she write amazing stories and come up with amazing plots, but she also writes gorgeous prose, creates fascinating, well-rounded characters, and keeps you on the edge of your seat. So if that's the kind of thing you're keen to dive into the deep end of this summer, look no further. The next book that I recommend checking out this summer is No Country for Old Men, but I do not recommend this book to anybody who is squeamish about blood or gore or murder, because Cormac McCarthy really likes writing about that kind of stuff.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
Set in the hot desert landscape of West Texas, No Country for Old Men is the gripping story of a drug deal gone wrong. It kicks off when Vietnam War veteran Llewellyn Moss stumbles across a murder scene in the desert and finds a suitcase filled with more than $2 million. What would you do? He takes it.
Big mistake. Big
Huge.
What follows is a violent chase up and down the US-Mexico border involving a sheriff and a psychotic ex-Special Forces officer who will stop at nothing to track down the person who stole from his client. I listened to this audiobook last summer and thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you want to immerse yourself in a page-turning, blood-curdling thriller playing out across the American desert, you might too. Speaking of fast-paced, action-packed thrillers set against scorching deserts, have you read I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes? If not, then you know what you're reading this summer. At over 700 pages, I Am Pilgrim is for those of you who want to disappear into another world for a while. A world facing a deadly threat, where only one man can save all of humanity. Espionage, terrorism, murder. If these are words that describe your ideal summer reading, give this book a try. I don't want to reveal another detail. The next book I discovered through my Afrofuturism course at university. It's called Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson. Just as a bit of background, in case you've never heard of Afrofuturism, it's basically speculative or science fiction that centers Black history and culture. Books within the Afrofuturist genre usually set out to examine the past, question the present, or envision an optimistic future. So examples of books that I read for that course were Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson. Although I can't remember this book super duper well, it was one of the few that I had rented for the course and decided to buy after finishing it because I really enjoyed it. And what I can remember from it makes me feel like it would be a perfect summer read. So this book is set in a dystopian future Toronto, I believe, where the rich have fled the city and barricaded it with roadblocks, leaving everyone else behind to fight for survival. And our protagonist is a young woman of Caribbean descent who has to protect her family. I would recommend this book to people who are after a rich, immersive sci-fi experience, not as thrilling perhaps, but definitely a captivating read. Part 2, Sense and Sensibility and SPF. Now, let's move on to the literary essentials that you don't want to miss in your life or this summer. First up, we have one of my favorite books from one of the greatest writers of all time, Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. I had a phase where I pretty much just read Margaret Atwood books, and there wasn't a single one I didn't like. I'm forever blown away by the fact that she can write historic fiction like Alias Grace, and thick, character-led novels like The Blind Assassin and The Robber Bride, and classic myth retellings, and extremely well-crafted dystopian novels like The Handmaid's Tale and Oryx and Crake.
I have absolute power.
I think you and everyone else should read all of her books. I know I will. But the one that I want to talk about in this video is Oryx and Crake. It's actually part of a trilogy, but from memory it stands very well on its own. I didn't read the sequel, The Year of the Flood, until years later, and it didn't feel like an essential follow-up. I don't think I've ever even read the third one, Mad Adam, but I should. Anyway, my point is, you can read this one without feeling like you need to commit to 3 books instead of 1. In this book, we're introduced to this guy called Snowman, who seems to be the sole survivor of this catastrophic world event. Aside from these strange genetically modified people he calls the children of Crake, for whom he feels a sense of responsibility. The timeline alternates between the present day of this dystopian future and Snowman's memories of his pre-apocalyptic life when his name was Jimmy. I think this fits well in summer because it depicts a world destroyed by climate change. The jungly, marshy kind of setting where Snowman lives that I have in my mind is also very summery, but don't quote me on that. Snowman does sleep outside in a tree. I know that much. Flipping through, I'm reminded of all the things that I love about Margaret Atwood. The characters, the descriptions, the dystopian settings.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before.
Yeah, it's been way too long since I read one of her books. What's your favorite Margaret Atwood book so I can check it out? if I haven't already read it. And I really want to read this again for a third time, but you'll just have to do it for me. Definitely do check out content warnings for this book, though, if there are certain topics you don't want to read about, and that goes for many of the books that I'm recommending. This one, I do remember, goes to some dark places. Okay, I've been talking about this for a while. I think it's a sign that I need to make an entire video dedicated to the masterpiece that is Margaret Atwood's body of work. Moving on, we have another one of my favorite writers and one of my favorite books, The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. It's 1959. And an overzealous Baptist minister has brought his wife and 4 daughters deep into the heart of the Congo on a mission to save the unenlightened souls of Africa. But while he becomes more and more insistent in his twisted quest, despite all the obvious protests he faces at all angles, his family's faith begins to waver. This novel is told from the alternating perspectives of the 5 women, and it's really a sprawling family saga set over the course of 3 decades and nearly 600 pages in post-colonial Africa. I think it goes without saying that the Congolese setting makes this a perfect summer read. In my memory, everything about this book is so rich that you just want to eat it. It drips with heat and humidity and the growing tension of a family's undoing. It probably won't surprise you that I also want to read this one again. Maybe I just need to do a better job of actually retaining the books I read. But mark my words, when I do, it will be in the buzzing fly, beaded sweat, scorching sun heat of the summer. Last but not least in the list of literary essentials, alliteration much? Well done! We have East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is another expansive family saga at 600 plus pages, and I think the description summarizes this more concisely than I could. Set in the rich farmland of Salinas Valley, California, this powerful, often brutal novel follows the intertwined destinies of 2 families, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, whose generations helplessly reenact the fall of Adam and Eve and the poisonous rivalry of Cain and Abel. I'm starting to sense a pattern in these books, that they may only feel summery because I read them in the summer, but you know me. My reading reasons are determined by the seasons. That's my motto.
Nailed it.
And yes, although this also takes place over many years, it primarily plays out under the hot California sun. Necessary disclaimer. This book was published in 1952. So there are some questionable / problematic points of view and uses of language. But in my view, it's still readable and enjoyable if you take it with a pinch of salt and keep in mind the time period that it was published. It still fits into the category of books that impress me with how well they hold up in modern day. So if you have yet to discover the work of Steinbeck, or if you want to immerse yourself in a thick, atmospheric tale of family, trauma, and redemption, just head east. East of Eden. With that, we can move on to the third and final part of this video. Part 3. Easy breezy books. So you want to breeze through your summer reading like it's a picnic in the park, huh?
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Just kidding. Summer is all about taking it easy. That's what makes it so freaking great. So for this last section, I'll start with the YA novels that I have on this list, and listen closely because like I said, you will not find me recommending YA very often on this channel. The first easy breezy book I want to recommend is another one of my all-time favorites dating back to when I was 11. I kid you not. I read this book every single summer for at least 5 years in a row. And the book that I'm talking about is The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer. How can I convey my love for this book? Admittedly, I have not read it since I was about 13, and I'm very curious to know if it holds up. But I feel strongly that it will, and I borrowed it from my parents' bookshelf to read it myself this summer and to reminisce about the joys of my childhood. Our hero in this futuristic novel is a boy called Matteo who was not born but harvested. He's a clone of this drug lord called El Patron, and to most people that makes him a monster. But he's just a boy trying to understand his existence. Set against the backdrop of poppy fields growing between the US and what was once Mexico, the setting of this coming-of-age sci-fi screams summer. And considering the fact that I returned to it every single summer as a kid, I think this would be a perfect book for anyone wanting to pick up an easy read. The memories of this book are flooding back to me, and I think little Johanna was in love with Matt. And while a small part of me wants to keep this book safe and untouched in my youth, I feel so confident in its magic and wonder that I can't wait to read it again. Side note, this is another first book in a two-part series that I never finished. Obviously, I felt it was fine on its own, but maybe in addition to rereading this book for the 100th time, I'll finally check out the sequel. Another YA book that I think would be amazing to breeze through during the summer months is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. There are a lot of futuristic novels on this list. I guess I feel like summer is just a perfect time for sci-fi and dystopia. Maybe because I associate post-apocalyptic worlds with the intense effects of climate catastrophe. Hooray! I absolutely loved this book when I was a tween embarking on my angsty early years of high school. It transports its readers to the year 2045 when the world sucks so much that everyone spends like all their time in this vibrant virtual reality called the Oasis. Then its creator dies, leaving behind a series of puzzles in this virtual world. Whoever solves them will win his fortune and control of the Oasis. And that is exactly what our protagonist, Wade Watts, itching to get out of his trailer park home in Oklahoma, plans to do. I am obsessed with the nostalgic video game focused aesthetic of this book. And this is yet another one that I want to read again because I'm dying to know if it's just as good to read as an adult. I can't believe that in addition to the bazillion books that I want to read for the first time, I also am faced with a growing list of books that I want to experience again and again. See, this is why I want my superpower to be time manipulation, so that I can freeze time and read all these cajillion books that I want to read. Also, so that I can go back in time to bet on winning lottery numbers. Then I wouldn't even need the superpower, because I could just spend all day reading anyway.
I'm over it.
It pains me to admit that I don't remember if this book has a summary setting. But set in yet another dystopian world built by climate change, I sense that it will fit the brief for a summer read. Better yet, it offers a virtual reality escape from our own doomed and climate catastrophe-bound reality. Now, if you're thinking, come on, Johanna, YA? Why nay? I'm a grown-up. First of all, calm down. Second of all, never fear, because I have just the recommendation for you. Next on the list is a book that you may never have heard of. I certainly hadn't until I read it in my International Women Writers class in university. It's called Dog Eaters by Jessica Hagedorn. This is another book that I bought after renting it for the course, and one of the reasons for that, aside from the fact that I really enjoyed reading it, is that it's set in the Philippines, where half of my fiance is from. It's also the 1950s Filipino setting that I feel makes this a perfect read for the summer. And at just 250 pages, it's sure to be a relatively quick read for those of you who want to breeze through your summer book list. Though that's not to say the plot is super easy to breeze through. It follows a diverse group of characters backdropped by the turbulence of life under a dictator who gets swept up in a whirlwind of events culminating in a beauty pageant, a film festival, and an assassination. I don't remember much about this book except that I really liked the rich detail, the flamboyant blend of American pop culture and Filipino tradition, and the glimpse into a world I've never known. So if that sounds like something for you, check it out. Switching gears, for the very last book on the list, let's talk romance. Another easy read that I recommend for the summer is The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson. Simpson. There's an I in it. This is a sweet and feel-good story of a geneticist who sets out on a quest to see if he's capable of love. He lives an extremely organized life, so it seems fitting that his mission to find a wife is planned down to the T. Then comes Rosie. Beguiling, spontaneous, exciting, and with a mission of her own, Rosie is the complete opposite of the checklist that Dawn created. And the rest is history. The Rosie Project is set in sunny Melbourne, Australia, making it a perfect book to dive into in the summertime. I read this book in high school and loved it. More than 10 years on from its publication, I can imagine that some elements of it wouldn't fly today. For example, I've seen criticism that it uses autism for the sake of entertainment. But I have to say, I disagree with that. To me, that's like saying all books with characters who are autistic need to be super serious. And that's dumb, in my opinion. Whether or not you like the simple writing style is a different question, but I believe it fits well with the plot and the protagonist. And when you're after a quick summer read, straightforward prose seems to be the way to go, right? There you have it, folks. Forget book dumps and summer slumps. From thrilling picks to literary bricks to books you'll finish quick, this list will have you reading all the way to the beach. Well, fellow bookworms, I hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know if you plan on reading any of these books, what you have on your summer TBR, and if you have any recommendations of your own, because I have a nice tropical holiday coming up, and I would love to know what I should bring to read on that trip. I really enjoyed this trip down memory lane. It has helped me get into the summer mood despite the fact that the UK insists on being shrouded in a thick blanket of clouds. And I can't wait to dive into my own warm weather volumes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!